Since Christian Horner's shock Red Bull exit, it's been a battle to work out exactly what happened, and as we understand it, even Horner hasn't had a clear reason for why he's been removed. But as we've learned some intriguing details about how it happened and the extent of the fallout, we've also understood more about what could be next for Horner and the Red Bull team he no longer leads. Nothing illustrates how much of a surprise this was than the fact Horner knew nothing of it before Tuesday and was not given a cause for being relieved of his responsibilities. He is still technically under contract at Red Bull, he just doesn't know in what role. When he was informed by Red Bull's parent company on Tuesday that he was being released from his operational duties, Horner requested a delay in issuing a press release. Footage of a personal farewell speech to Red Bull staff at its Milton Keynes base has since emerged, an address that came at Horner's direct insistence. We understand that after 20 years in charge, Horner didn't want them to find out he was leaving by press release or gossip. Apart from confirming he is no longer in charge of the F1 team, there's been no official comment from Red Bull senior management on why it's made the change now, and there may never be. Red Bull's basically on lockdown as far as Horner's exit is concerned, but that's not stopped us finding out a few things. We know it's nothing to do with the allegations made against Horner by a female employee last year, and on-track performance is only part of the story, as there's a bigger political play to unpick. The decision to remove Horner revolves around control of Red Bull's F1 operation, with some factions unhappy about how much power he had. Beyond Horner's role as team principal of Red Bull's F1 team, he was also CEO, head of powertrains, had exerted control of its marketing operation, and even had some dominion over its second team Racing Bulls. Some within the wider Red Bull structure had either become jealous or concerned that it was becoming Horner Racing and not Red Bull Racing. This could explain why there had been some subtle shifts in recent weeks to realign Horner's sphere of control within the empire, pulling him away from areas he had previously been in charge of. Back in 2023, after Red Bull's mostly silent co-founder Dietrich Mateschitz had passed away, Horner had been central in telling one of Red Bull's CEOs, Oliver Mintzlaff, that he had two options for the then underperforming second team: sell it or let Horner sort it out. Mintzlaff chose the second option, with Horner thus playing a significant role in reshaping the organisation. He got Lauren Mekies on board as team boss, slotted Peter Bayer in as CEO, and helped pull together the Visa and Cash App deals that remain on the card today. He also helped bring the second team into a facility on the wider Red Bull campus in Milton Keynes. Recently though, Red Bull wanted to take back more control of the Racing Bulls operation, pulling marketing away from Horner and empowering the team side with Bayer and Mekies more. There are also suggestions that there had been some dialogue amid the current on-track troubles of Red Bull wanting to split Horner's responsibilities even in Milton Keynes, so he was not spread too thinly across both the racing team and its new powertrains division. One idea was for Horner to move back towards a simple Red Bull team boss role with someone else put in charge of powertrains. But Horner never saw his strength in simply being a team principal who ran operations at the track and reported into others. He was always of the belief that to succeed in F1, the person in charge had to be the master of the team's destiny, and that meant being in charge of everything. It was this need for total control that scuppered a potential works deal with Porsche from 2026, as Horner argued corporate interference risked robbing Red Bull of its core strength of being a nimble racing team. But the way he saw things didn't work for others within the Red Bull empire. It's long been suggested that Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko had wanted to push back against Horner having too much power, and that Mintzlaff didn't like how a Red Bull entity operated almost entirely outside its control. And that's before we even touch on the concerns that star driver Max Verstappen's father Jos had about what would happen to Red Bull if Horner stayed in charge. When Horner's personal scandal erupted early last year, he was bought time by the unwavering support he enjoyed from the Thai side of the Red Bull ownership, which has had a small overall majority, even though the Austrian side has long since been in charge of actually running the company and its various offshoots. This may have counted for less lately, perhaps because the Jovidia family finally stopped believing that Horner was the only man for the job and had been convinced by the Austrian side that change was necessary, given the team's decline, the exit of so many senior figures, and the threat of Verstappen leaving, with that camp much closer to Marko than to Horner. But it may also have been facilitated by a small but significant transfer of the Jovidia shareholding to a private trust earlier this year that meant Red Bull GmbH had slightly more say than before. Whatever the exact mechanisms, Horner clearly lost his crucial lifeline, and finally fell victim as others used the Verstappen situation and recent Red Bull frustrations to strengthen their hand in convincing Mintzlaff that the time was right to pull the trigger and make a seismic change. A full separation between Red Bull and Horner is just a matter of time, although he may remain under contract officially until the start of 2026. But sooner or later he will be released to finally move elsewhere should he wish to find another F1 project to take on that gives him the complete control he feels he needs. We understand that Horner is in no rush to find another position in F1 and is content with spending some time at home after a turbulent 18 months or so. But as the most experienced and successful team boss of the modern era, he will quickly become an option for most teams on the grid who consider a change of leadership. Ferrari's understood to have had no contact with Horner and has no intention right now to recruit him, but it was keen before it signed current team boss Fred Vasseur, who is out of contract at the end of the year and under increasing pressure from the media in Italy. Horner is very aware of the pressures and the unique situation that comes with running Ferrari. It was a factor when Ferrari top dog John Elkann lobbied Horner to join the team 3 years ago when he was working out who should succeed Mattia Binotto and eventually went for Vasseur. But the main reason Horner declined was a desire to stick with Red Bull, which is no longer relevant because it didn't want to stick with him. Whatever happens with Vasseur in the short term, it would be no surprise should Horner come back onto Elkann's radar sooner or later. If that happened, Horner would need assurances that he would have enough control to get the job done. Similarly, should Renault plot a post-Flavio Briatore future for its Alpine F1 team, Horner would be a logical candidate to run the project, and if it was willing to give up a little bit more of a shareholding, Horner would love the idea of having some skin in the game when it comes to team ownership. But it's impossible to imagine him working under Briatore, as he's only just escaped an awkward setup with an old-school, hard-to-wrangle independent advisor in Helmut Marko at Red Bull. But if Renault feels it needs a more modern F1 leader who can run the whole thing and report into the board in a more conventional way, or even be part of that board, then Horner is an obvious candidate, and it is understood that Horner would at least consider it. The new rules looming for next year could play a part in what happens and when. Even if there is no reshuffle this year, there could be a team boss merry-go-round to go with the inevitable driver market madness that will come in early 2026 when it's clear who's nailed the new rules and who has slipped up. If a team falls into the latter camp, its owners will start to look at who is to blame and who is a better fit to pull it out of trouble. That's when Horner's hand could be its strongest. As we've established, his control of Red Bull Racing went beyond just running a race team. As CEO of the business, he was key to it becoming a vast enterprise, with the technology arm doing so much more than just designing and building Red Bull's F1 car. He was also central to the establishment of Red Bull's first ever F1 engine program to set the team up for life after Honda in 2026 and beyond. While the amount of control he had was not sustainable, the experience has given Horner unique insight beyond the already valuable first-hand experience of turning an underachieving team into an all-conquering one. The rise of the engineer team principle reporting into a company CEO shows there are very few people in top positions in F1 who have done the same. This could make Horner very appealing to any team on the grid, from smaller independents to fully fledged works projects and anything in between. And given Horner spearheaded Red Bull becoming a dominant force in F1 in two different eras, it's easy to imagine top bosses being enchanted by the prospect of achieving the same results by replicating a similar arrangement and giving Horner the authority he demands. Laurent Mekies has already taken charge of Red Bull and has been trackside with the team for the first time at a planned filming date with the 2025 car at Silverstone. There, Mekies said the organisation didn't underestimate the size of the challenge ahead, with all new rules and Red Bull building its own engine. That may have hinted at why Red Bull felt it needed to make the change now, to give it the best chance of getting things in order before next year, as if it's going to be a struggle in performance terms, the last thing Red Bull needs alongside that is a turbulent off-track situation. All that would do is guarantee that Verstappen is driven away. Mekies has immediately adopted a mantra that Red Bull already has everything it needs to be successful, a hint that his role will just be to bring out the best of everybody rather than revolutionise how Red Bull works. Mekies' top priority will be reassuring the Verstappen camp that he has a plan in place to deliver the race-winning car that the four-time champion wants. To help drive the team forward though, Mekies is going to need to get a quick grasp of why things are not working as well as they should be at the moment and why things haven't clicked as expected with the current car. Are there personnel weaknesses? Does the team need different talent on board or in different positions? Or is this a case of what Andrea Stella found at McLaren, where the quality is all in place already, it just needs refining and to work together in a better way? In terms of Red Bull's infrastructure problems, there's little Mekies can do to fast track things like the new wind tunnel being built at Milton Keynes, so for now he is going to have to put up with some of the issues that have hampered progress back at the factory. And the progress of the all-new Red Bull engine for 2026 is not something he's going to be able to change direction on dramatically. That project was greenlit by Horner and it remains the biggest uncertainty regarding Red Bull's future hopes. If Red Bull gets things completely wrong on the engine side against manufacturer rivals like Mercedes and Honda, then there is no quick fix regardless of who is in charge or whether the team still has Verstappen as its driver.